Welcome to the MLB Early Bird Podcast for the August 31st slate of MLB action. I am Jason Floyd. As always, here on this Sunday night, Monday edition of the Early Bird Podcast, I am joined by Terry McBride. As me and Terry are going to be doing a little battle here at the beginning of the week with the Rays and the Yankees playing each other. I know you've been watching the Yankees. I was watching a little bit of the Rays today as they were got up very quickly on the Marlins today. End up scoring 12 runs. Rays playing some good ball right now. I know your Yankees, maybe started to turn things around.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully today's a big step in the right direction. They had a real nice comeback win late innings. Aaron Hicks hit a tying home run late, and really hopefully get us in gear and get things going. They've got David Garcia going right now, and he came through the first inning of his career clean, and the Yanks have Eric Kratz catching him. Gary's sitting for the second game, and Kratz is like 42, and Davey's like the second youngest player in the league this year at 21, right? So Davey comes off the mound, and Kratz gives him a big hug, congrats for his first inning. Michael Kay, the announcer, goes, and there's Garcia getting a nice hug from his father. it's the biggest age gap in a Yankees starting battery, Michael Kay was saying, since 1906. Which is unbelievable, just thinking about every single game over and over again for 162 games or 150 back in the day over all that time. This is the biggest gap since 1906 for a starting pitcher, starting catcher combo. So that was cool.
Here's my question about that stat. Who kept track of that?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's got to be somebody on Baseball References just doing the subtraction, plugging it in every day. This is just one guy's job.
I mean, that's an amazing stat. That's first off, someone even keeps it. I mean, there's as someone who is very much a stat guy, there are some stats you look at and said, who the hell was keeping track of that stat? But yeah,
right, yeah. Who thought to track it? Who thought to look it up? In the moment, it was just I love stuff like that, and that's what's great about baseball. There's so much data, and you can find stats and numbers for anything. I love it.
That's an awesome stat that he pulled up there. Yeah, that's always in a baseball broadcast because you got so much time that you're filling up. You're trying to find whatever you can get out there. But, of course, I want to let you know that we are sponsored by Yahoo, and Yahoo is the most trusted name in fantasy sports. Yahoo DFS now includes CSV upload and CSV edit features when you're looking to play those multiple lineups. You might be like myself, as I was literally about 5 minutes away from lock today. I'm trying to get those CSV edits in, trying to get those lineups in. And but of course, with Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, make better choices. Choose Yahoo Daily Fantasy. Now, when we look at this slate on Monday, we do have, if you're playing on FanDuel does have two different early slates. They've got just a plain old early slate with 3 games of Miami and the Mets, Baltimore, Toronto, Seattle, and the Angels. They also have an all-day slate that does include all games. So that is something if you're going to play on FanDuel. DK, they've just got the main slate at 7:05, and I want to say I saw they've got an early slate with just the Marlins, Mets, Orioles, and Blue Jays. We can kind of briefly go over some of these early games, especially for our listeners that are particularly going to be playing on FanDuel, and maybe they're looking at, Jacob deGrom as someone that they've kind of said, you know what, if I'm playing in that all-day slate, I'm going to give me that 11,400 in Jacob deGrom.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't even pull up the pricing for that early slate because I saw Jake deGrom's name kind of next to the other guys on that slate, and I was like, well, there's the answer. I don't need to look at what anybody costs. Yeah, he's pretty much the go-to there. I feel like the entire field is going to be on him. So if you want to get cute about things and differentiate, it'll be very easy. Just pick any of the other pitchers. But DeGrom's a stud. We know that. Last year he was 31.7% strikeout rate. He's up to 36% this year. Throwing harder this year than he ever has. Averages 98 miles an hour on the fastball. Has touched like 101, I think, this year. 35 to 40% whiff on all 4 of his pitches. Just really nothing more to say. The one thing that I would note, it was in the MLB.com blurb, and I didn't even realize it until I saw that, is that this will be his 4th straight start against the Marlins. So they've seen him a lot. Now, DeGrom is ace of all aces, best pitcher in baseball probably, or right there, 1-1A with Scherzer. Do you think there's any impact, just from a baseball standpoint of them seeing him that many times so far in this short a time span where, sort of like a second, third time through the lineup kind of thing. They've seen his stuff so much, so frequently, and so recently. Do you think there's anything to that? Something not to worry about?
I put stuff into that. I mean, like I use it like when you're talking about me coming from more of a football world of when you see that team the second time around, you kind of know what's coming. So these Marlins batters, they're going to know what's coming in. Also, I think it comes down to, the management of the Marlins. They're sitting there saying, okay, we've now got a couple of games against this guy. What worked? What didn't work? Who in the lineup do we need a lineup against this guy? So to me, I think there is something to take into that.
Yeah, you can always, and you put that together with, some of the existing career splits and some of the existing career splits against, similar handedness and things like that against the pitching repertoire and everything. So there could be a little something there. You maybe roll out a few Marlin stacks just as a crazy offbeat if you're making 150 for this short slate. But I think, like we said, you're really leaning to DeGrom on the pitching side of things. And then really, I think maybe Marco Gonzalez would be the next best option on that slate as far as a starter. Not really much else that I liked on there. So Marco's 18.9% strikeout, 6.0% walk for his career, 1.32 whip for his career. So he allows guys to get on, mostly through the base hit. He's reduced his usage of his changeup a little bit this year. More focus on the two-seamer sinker and his cutter. 22.9% whiff on the cutter, sub 20 on the other pitches, 39% ground ball. So, I mean, not a pitcher I really trust in any sense, but he's kind of been getting it done. He does it by inducing a lot of soft contact. He's 20% soft contact on the year, but allows a fair amount of hard contact. He really takes it out of the medium side. So kind of a do-or-die dice roll of a pitcher, but might be the second best option on that short slate.
Yeah, the Angels have not announced who they're going to go with. Looking like it's probably Julio Teheran based on what FanDuel has out there right now. This isn't the Julio Teheran of 5 years ago, so that's something to put in there. Overall, in the other one of the other earlier games, Baltimore and Toronto. Baltimore has not officially come out and said that Keegan Aiken is going to be the star. That's kind of what we do expect. Chase Anderson, we're expecting going to get the start for Toronto. I guess in terms of, and in the other game, we got St. Louis and Cincinnati. If someone's playing in that all-day slate on FanDuel, Dakota Hudson going for the Cardinals and Anthony going for the Reds. For our listeners that maybe are going to play in some, early those FanDuel lineups, and they're going to play that all day, is there maybe some stacks that you think could be somewhat interesting?
Interesting. So I don't have it loaded up so I can jump through that and give numbers attached to it. So it's a little bit just, speculative looking at some of the pitching matchups. I think you could probably go and attack the starter for the Marlins. I think we can definitely attack the rookie who's starting, Keegan Aiken, we think, for the Orioles there. So both sides of that, it's the Blue Jays against him, right? Just looking through these matchups. So it would be targeting the Blue Jays bats against him. I don't love targeting the Orioles bats against Chase Anderson. Anderson's a veteran pitcher, not anybody I really want to go to as like a starting pitching option, but he might be able to limit that somewhat limited offense. So they're not really popping. They wouldn't be probably in my model. Maybe a little bit on like a Santander for a home run, somebody like that. And then, looking down later on, I kind of like the two pitchers in the St. Louis and Cincinnati game, just as far as that all-day slate, as two of the better options on that board. So I wouldn't necessarily stack against either one. When I say I like them, they're within that limited set of options. They're all right. So the move might be to roll out and maybe stack some of those Mariners bats against Julio Teheran. Like you said, he's not the Julio Teheran from a while back. The Mariners have been a little bit frisky. Julio's allowed a 1.40 career home run per 9 to left-handed hitters. We know that they've got some lefty bats. Kyle Seager comes to mind. So maybe that's the move. I wouldn't expect them to be crazy high-owned on that slate. So I could maybe endorse some Mariners bats there as just an off-the-top-of-the-head one.
Yeah, I mean, but of course, for people who are playing on DK, they're like, we're not concerned about that. Obviously everyone's going to be looking at the main slate. Before we get into the main slate, I want to let you know about how you can get access to all of our player projections, ownership projections, the top pitcher tools, and so much more by signing up for an Awesemo Plus MLB Weekly Pass for $15.95. no matter whether you're listening to this podcast, a strategy show, live before lock. You always talk to us here as we talk about who are the players that are going to be the highest owned, who are we like in that top stack tool. And if you want access to all those tools, you got to sign up for an Awesemo Plus MLB weekly pass for $15.95. All you got to do is go to awesemo.com/join to sign up and get that pass for all of this week's MLB action. But, we look at this main slate starting off at 7:05. Start off with the Nationals and the Phillies. I want to say we were doing a show together when Spencer Howard was set to make his debut in the big leagues. And this is his first start since August the 20th. He was supposed to start on Thursday of last week. However, that was postponed. So we'll see if he can get his first win. And then when you look on the other side, it's kind of something you alluded to earlier with Eric on the mound for the Nats, this is his second straight start against the Phillies.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, regardless of how many times straight he starts against them, I think I want the Phillies bats when he's pitching against them. They're just a big-time team, very, very good offense here, a lot of power, and he's just not a pitcher that has all that much to offer. So I think we can definitely attack Fede. On the other side, Howard, he's allowed 4 home runs in just 11 innings so far, so the number looks a little wonky on him. But he was really good at limiting home runs throughout his minor league career. It was a brief minor league career, but he's had a number of stops where it was under a half a home run per 9. So he was very good at it there. 45% whiff on the 42 sliders he's thrown in his limited innings. He's yielded 1 home run on each of his 4 pitches so far this year. So it's tough to predict which one of his pitches is going to work really well for him. But the kid's got quality. He's a high-end prospect for them. So I do like him. I don't know that I love him in this spot going up against the Nats. They're a frisky offense team we like to get to a little bit here. So I think we can roll out stacks on both sides of this one. We like Trey Turner up at the top for the Nats. Juan Soto, ton of power, obviously. Asdrubal in the middle of that lineup doesn't really get respect, tends to go under own, somebody I really like to get to a lot. So I think we can build there. And then, like we started with, I really like Andrew McCutchen. He's perennially underpriced on FanDuel and just a guy I roll out every time from the top of this lineup. Gets on base all the time. Hit a home run for us the other day, hitting ahead of some real thumpers in Hoskins, Harper, Real Muto. We've got Didi in that lineup. Gene Segura hit a home run the other day. They've got Alec Boehm up there now. So really, really like what the Phillies can do. Pretty much 1 through 8, even with Hazley in there too. So really like that lineup.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a guy like Cabrera at 2,800 on FanDuel. I mean, that's just, especially if you want to build a stack with the Nats, that $2,800 salary really makes it very intriguing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a guy who hits from both sides of the plate. He's a guy we've seen go over 20 home runs in his career. He's just somebody I trust ultimately. And, he's a veteran guy. He's probably 10, 12 years in the league so far this year. So somebody with baked in career numbers that, it produces. He's getting a very good projection for me. And that price is ridiculous. You can build him into the middle. You can go a 3 solid veteran stack that I like in the middle of this lineup with him, Kendrick, and Eaton for $2,900, $2,800, and $2,900. And then do anything else you want with this team, with every other team on the slate. So I really like doing things with the Nat stack here. Don't forget about Eric Thames down the bottom of this lineup against a young righty. A lot of lefty power there. Victor Robles, kid we like to wrap around with his power and his speed. So they're $2,300 and $2,400 a piece on FanDuel. So there's just so much to make the only 2 expensive bats very affordable on this team.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Phillies, JT is always a guy that I'm going to look at, in that catcher spot, particularly on DraftKings. A little different with FanDuel with the catcher / first base, but still, he's even a guy that I think you have to always look at.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, he's just got a ton of power. One of the best, if not the best, offensive catchers in baseball. A guy you can absolutely go to against either hand, so no real worries about the split. Only $3,800 over on FanDuel, so even though he's going to be taking the spot of a first baseman, this is a catcher that you don't mind doing that with pretty much every time. He's got similar quality to what most of the corner infielders are going to be offering you anyway. On DK, where you do have to play him as a catcher and you do have to play a catcher, I would expect he's going to be pretty popular as part of this offense, but I don't mind getting to him. I don't know if I would do it as much as a one-off just because of what I expect his popularity to be, but as part of the stack, yeah, I think he's almost mandatory.
When you look at Monday night slate, I think there's two games to me that just stick out from a game perspective. One is the Rays and the Yankees, and the other one is going to be the White Sox and the Twins are about an hour after the Rays and Yankees will have first pitch. And obviously, the Yankees have not officially come out, but expecting Garrett Cole is going to get the start. Tyler Glasnow, we do know, is going to get the start for the Rays. Glasnow in his last start allowed 2 runs over 7 innings and struck out a career-high 13. It was against Baltimore. I guess you got to kind of throw that in there. That was against there. And, of course, I don't know if there's really anything we have to really say about Garrett Cole. I think everyone knows how great of a pitcher he is. FanDuel, 10,700. Glasnow, 9,500. So, in terms of, especially on the FanDuel side of things, is, you don't have to worry about an SP2. So you only got, maybe is Garrett Cole the guy you go to, or, do you kind of say, you know what, man, he's raised bats. I don't know if I necessarily want to target him.
I think Cole's a guy I'm going to go to, even 10-7 on FanDuel. It's a big price tag. There are a lot of good starters on the slate today. It's a pretty good pitching slate, so I don't know how much I'm going to get him. It's probably going to be dictated by what the ownership looks like and what he looks like in the top starters tool tomorrow. The Rays are a lineup I don't love to tangle with, but like you said, I mean, Cole's an ace. I'm getting a tremendous projection on him. Guy's striking out 32% of hitters this year. That's actually down from a ridiculous 39.9% last year. So he's a dominant pitcher. But the Rays bats, I didn't get to enough of them after writing them up today, and they went off, and I'm kicking myself for that. So I don't know if I really want to roll too much of them against them here, despite the good number. He's throwing about 1 mile an hour lower velocity across the board, Cole, this year so far. So maybe that's the difference that we're seeing in the 7% or so shaved off the strikeout rate. But again, over 30%, you're not worried about that. 46% whiff on 73 sliders he's thrown, 52% on 106 curveballs. So just a dominant pitcher. Not worried about him there. Glasnow on the other side against this Yankees lineup, kind of interesting. 9,500 on FanDuel. I don't get nearly the projection form that I get for Cole, but it's also not the real Yankees lineup. We talked about that a little before the show. They're still dealing with some injuries. They got DJ LeMahieu back, but they're still missing Judge. They're still missing Stanton. So a lot of power out of the middle of this lineup. Gary Sanchez, when he does hit the ball, it's going far, but he's really not making much contact at all, just swinging and missing it a lot. So a lot of struggling hitters in the lineup here for the Yanks. And Glasnow, like you said, he's very, very good strikeout pitcher, 39.3% strikeout so far in his 28 innings this year. So like a lot of what he does, he's got a little bit of a bumpy stat line now, like a 5.14 ERA on the season. So some of the box score watchers, the casuals, might not be getting to him. So could be a good spot where he's a little bit sneakier than he should be. So he's another guy I want to keep an eye on in this matchup for sure tomorrow.
When we think about some of the hottest hitters in baseball, and of course everyone's talking about Manny Machado, but are you still riding the Luke train, or do you think this Luke train is going to kind of start to kind of slow down a little bit?
Look, I can't explain it. I don't know where it came from. I am still mad at him for stealing Greg Bird's job, even though Greg Bird could never stay healthy. But look, the guy just hits. He's 308, 376, 725, I think, coming into today's action. 12 home runs, 418 ISO, which is like double a good ISO. WRC plus 90% above league average. So, yeah, the guy's just raking, filling in for Judge, hitting second in the lineup in a lot of days. Only 3,800, so love the price. Decent home run mark in my model. The only guy getting a higher one on the Yanks right now is Gary, which, like we said, is going to be entirely dependent on his ability to make any contact at all with that Glasnow arsenal. So Glasnow throws basically 2 insane pitches. He's getting 75% whiff on the 19 changeups that he's thrown, so we don't really even count that, but he's getting 52% whiff on 182 curveballs that he's thrown, a 218 X ISO on his fastball, though. So if he throws the fastball in the wrong part of the plate to Gary might be able to turn on it. So I do like some of the Yankees' power here. You could make a stack between like LeMahieu, Voit, and work your way down to Gary. Tauchman and Urshela are also 2 bats that I think are playing over their heads since coming to the Yankees, but they've been doing a good job and they haven't cooled off. So they're in a similar boat. I think you can build them into that stack too.
At 2,800 on FanDuel, if Sanchez gets a home run, he's paid off the price.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, he's probably going to be under-owned on DK. We don't know what his price is going to be over there yet, but assuming that the Yankees aren't going to be one of the most probable stacks against Glass now to really go off, I think Gary could be a little sneaky over there as, maybe a cheap catcher one-off, a very low-owned catcher one-off to play, or as part of this stack.
And you bring up a really great point of, when we're talking about, who the type of players that may be in the tournament you're in. If you happen to be in a tournament that you think is going to have a lot of just casual baseball fans who are playing just DFS for fun, some entertainment while you're watching the games, Glasnow may be looked over because of that ERA.
Right. And that's something that I like to look for. That's why I always talk about, things like XFIP and, things that aren't just popping up on that just FanDuel when you pull up the player notes, stuff like that really tells the underlying story of who a player actually is behind the surface numbers. A lot of those surface numbers, ERA, batting average, they're flawed stats. They're not really telling the truth about what a player is doing. And we know that. So when we look at those things, it helps us find that edge. So yeah, those are always important things to explore. A lot of people ask, what we're looking at when we look into FanGraphs. So yeah, always explore those underlying numbers that aren't popping up for just the casual public fan.
Moving on to the next game, another team in the AL East. That'll be the Boston Red Sox. They'll be at home taking on the Atlanta Braves. Colton Brewer is going to get the start for the Red Sox. He has been an opener for them. So there's that, we were talking before the show about how, a year ago the Rays were being chastised for this whole opener thing. And now, half the league is going there and doing it. For the Braves, we're expecting that Anderson is going to get the start for them. Looking at their DK prices, Ian Anderson, 8,400. Colton Brewer, 5,500. Look, for me, I don't know why you would necessarily roster an opener. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, maybe as one of those, like if he's 4K on DraftKings, one of those like bare minimum pitchers that are weird random misprices. But I don't think Brewer's going to be priced that way. He threw 4 innings, I think it was against the Orioles in his longest start of the year. So he's kind of working in that in-between-ish kind of role, but just not a pitcher I really would want to go to with any confidence at all. I had Max Fried on the Brave side of this one. Is it Anderson?
They've not officially come out and said it. I was just basing on what FanDuel put out. Okay.
It was Max Fried that came down with my data from Fangraphs, but that goes back and forth, especially this year when they don't announce. So if it's Anderson, I would probably lean more into the Red Sox stack side of things. Mm-hmm. If it's Fried, I think we can get away with rolling some Fried. So it's an interesting spot. So definitely let's keep an eye on who's actually starting. Fried, I was getting a pretty good projection on, only 8,600 on FanDuel also. So I like Max Fried. He's pitching really well. Anderson is a high-end rookie, just another one of those that just carousel of high-end rookie pitchers that the Braves have that they can just keep calling up infinitely. But I don't have his numbers in front of me. Did he actually make a start the other day? I know he was scheduled, and then was that the game that scrapped? If you have that in front of you, it'll kill my blood.
I have that in front of me, but.
All right, so regardless, we're talking about a rookie pitcher coming up. I think we can target some Red Sox bats safely there, and they're super cheap on FanDuel, as they have been. And I think that's the real story here anyway. 3,100, 3,300, 3,300, 3,500. Alex Verdugo, Rafael Devers, JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts. That should not be. That's been a misprice for a couple weeks now. I've been talking about it. Just get all over it. It was a misprice today. They're drawing very good home run marks even against Max Fried, and those are going to go up if it's the other guy. So I like this spot. Red Sox playing at home. I definitely think we can work with some of those guys. Keep an eye on they just worked Bobby Dahlbeck into this lineup, and he is a very, very high-end prospect for them. Very top-end hitting prospect. 190 projected ISO from Steamer. Big swing and miss guy, three outcomes kind of a hitter. Around 30% projected strikeout rate. But if he's on the slate, he wasn't on today's slate, but if he's on the slate, he could be a good option that's going to be super sneaky because the public won't be aware of him yet. So he's one of those top rookies. I am so mad, by the way, that I missed Joe Adell Day yesterday. I only rolled out a few lineups. You've heard me talk about Joe Adell like 37 times. Kid went off for 2 home runs yesterday, and I didn't have any of them. So I'm so annoyed about that. But Delbeck's got similar kind of upside to Adele as a hitter. So, could be a sneaky option in that Sox lineup. I think that's a target for us. And then, the Braves coming back the other way against what's likely to be a bullpen game. If it's Darwinzon, Hernandez, or anybody else coming back the other way, fire away on the Braves stack for sure, getting very good power numbers on the top half of their lineup. And then all the way down through like a Duvall, a Riley hitting 7th, 8th, somewhere around there. Lot to work with in that Braves lineup.
Yeah, you look at since Acuna came back off IL, which was at the end of last week, he's had a 30-point day on FanDuel, a 15-point day on FanDuel, didn't do anything today. But, that is somebody that, you're always looking forward to. And he's the most expensive. And you bring up the great point about if you want to do a Red Sox stack, your most expensive Red Sox bat on FanDuel, Xander Bogaerts at $3,500.
Right. And I mean, he should be in the 45. That's probably 1,000 short for where Bogarts, quote unquote, should be, based on at least the way FanDuel used to do their pricing. So what they're doing with the play whoever you want is creating some havoc, at least for me, and I think some of the other guys out there. So it's been fun though.
Next up, let's move along as we've got the Pirates and the Brewers. Trevor Williams is the starting pitcher for the Pirates. As we do this show, the Brewers have not come out and said who their starting pitcher is going to be.
So the one that came down for me and that I'll talk about a little bit is Eric Lauer for the Brewers. I think that's who it is. But again, it's just, kind of what came down with my update. So not really looking at either pitcher here. I guess if I really had to choose, I'm getting a better projection on Williams, even though he's more expensive and in the worst matchup. If it was an actual gun to my head, I'd probably take Lauer against the Pirates, better matchup. But I really don't like either pitcher here. I think we can roll out the Brewers for sure against a guy like Trevor Williams. 18.1% strikeout rate, 7.6% walk for his career, 1.28 home run per 9 to right-handed hitters. So maybe take a look at some of that right-handed Brewers power. You've got Ryan Braun there, assuming he's in the lineup, Keston Hiura, Avi Garcia. So it's a reverse splits kind of situation for what Williams typically allows. It's not a huge home run mark, but that's where it comes from. 2.08 x-ISO on his fastball, so he's allowing a lot of power on the fastball. Only 0.108 on the that was 0.208, not 2.08. That would be a broken number. But only 0.108 on the slider and generating 42% whiff on 131 sliders thrown. So that's a good pitch for him. But ultimately, I think the Brewers can handle him. Pirates on the other side, just not a good lineup. Not a team I like to stack really very much at all. I think you could work them in a little bit against a pitcher like Lauer. Maybe get to a guy like Josh Bell, working Kevin Newman, maybe even just as like a little two-man there. Don't like a lot with this team.
You would be contrarian if you have a Pirate stack.
Yes, pretty much always.
Yeah, it's I don't think I hardly ever even look at the Pirates in terms of trying to put a stack together there. Obviously, Yelich is the most expensive bat at 4,100, but then there's a huge drop off on the Brewers in terms of FanDuel. So if you're looking to stack up against, and basically if you say, you know what, I'm stacking the Brewers because of who they're going against, I can't blame you.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, the salary drop is just unbelievable. It goes 4,100 from Yelich down to 3,200 for a star in and of himself in Keston Hiura. And then it goes down to 29 for Smoke, and it's below that for everybody else. I mean, it's just bananas what you can do on FanDuel with getting to basically any bats and putting them together with the top pitchers. So a lot of good pitching on the slate. So there's some good cheap stacks, available here that we can definitely work with.
Yeah, when we talk about good pitching, I think there may be a good amount of people listening to us that are sitting there and saying, okay, ultimately my decision comes down to Garrett Cole or to Shane Bieber, and you couldn't say you're wrong either way. I mean, Bieber has just been absolutely amazing. When you look at his lowest score this year was 37 points against the White Sox back on August the 9th, where he only had 8 strikeouts. His next lowest performance, and this is on FanDuel, by the way, is 51 points. So he has been absolutely amazing. And then going up here, the Royals and Keller going for the Royals, and our good old friend E-Mac saying Brad 327 and a third innings in the show, just 22 homers or 0.60 homers per 9. Who is the best bet to look for the exclusive solo shot from the Indians?
Yeah, special writing question from Eric M. down in Virginia. First time, long time. So, yeah, I think, just looking through some of those Indians for who's going to hit that solo shot. We talk about Keller's ability a little bit. There's a fire truck going by outside, so I'll raise my voice a little bit. We talk about Keller's ability to limit runs, limit home runs a lot when he pitches. Cost us a little bit last time. I had a fair amount of them, and I think he gave up a few runs uncharacteristically the last time out. But really do like that. It's a very real ability of his. He induces a good amount of ground balls, 51.7% for his career. He's only at 45.5 so far this year, so that can come up and probably will. Gets a good amount of whiff on his slider, 0.082 xISO on his slider as well. Throws the sinker 25% of the time, so very good ability to limit the home run. 0.60 home run per 9 for his career. So looking into some of the guys who hit his arsenal well, and at my home run model, I think I'm going to take the guy who's the obvious target for me, who's typically the top Indian in my home run model, and that's Franmil Reyes. He handles the arsenal the best, so I think EMAC, that's your solo shot for the Indians. If you want to roll it out, 18.7 points in the bag on FanDuel for Franmil.
And at 3,100, you gotta love the price.
Absolutely, gotta love the price, and those Indians are totally in play again, just looking up and down that stack at the top there. Jose Ramirez, top price on the board, $4,000, but everybody else, 3,400 for Francisco Lindor is hilarious. One of the best players in baseball. So, yeah, again, that's another big-time target, even against a pitcher like Keller. I think we can roll it out and, probably limit it just based on how much he is able to limit the home run ball. But I think we can roll it out over what the public is doing. And speaking of being over the public, Shane Bieber, who you led us in with at $12,000, I think probably is going to be under-owned for his quality and for the quality of the spot. It's a big price tag to pay on FanDuel, and that's going to be more expensive than Garrett Cole by $1,300. I'm getting about a half a point higher projection on Cole. So I think things like that might lead people away from Bieber, and I think that might be a spot we can take advantage of. If you can find ways to pay up, and we've just found a few already with these cheap stacks, I think Bieber is a dream spot here. So you mentioned all the quality that he's shown already so far this year, just in terms of fantasy points. He's 29.8% strikeouts for his career, only 4.7% walks, dynamite control, gives up not many home runs, 1.27 home run per 9 to lefties, and it's a whatever kind of thing because there's not many guys on base when it usually happens. Just dynamite. Righties can't touch his slider, lefties can't touch his curveball. Gets a ton of whiff on both pitches on those sides of the plate. So I love the option here, and I like paying up to be different with it.
Well, I remember when he started his last start last Tuesday, I was doing Live Before Lock with Alex, and in the chat, it was so many people were basically saying, I'm going to fade him, and obviously the price point's up there, and you kind of, you wonder, I mean, eventually he's going to have a bad game. It's just, this is the way it works at some point. And I think there's a lot of people are going, okay, is this finally the game where he has the bad game? And when you mentioned about the $12,000, salary on FanDuel, and look, you expect him to be somewhere in that range on DraftKings as well. And I'm sure on Yahoo, he's going to be $50+ would be, 54, 55, I think probably somewhere in that range. Is how many points has he got to score for you to say, you know what, it was worth it? So, I mean, it all becomes relative, right? We were talking about the spot for Garrett Cole. The projections are like dead on, but the spot for Cole is shakier than this, I think. I think the matchup against the Royals is stronger for Bieber than the matchup against the Rays is for Cole. So we've got to take into account what the other pitchers are doing on the board too for us. So if Cole ends up 35 FanDuel points, Giolito ends up 33, 32, and Bieber cracks 40, 45, even if he's a higher price, much lower ownership, you're on different bats because of that. It makes you unique. You're approaching the slate in different ways than a huge swath of the field. So as long as he doesn't get lit up, I mean, you don't want only 35 points from him for $12K.
But like if he puts up a start like that and you're on the right bats, you can still make that work as long as none of the other guys are putting up a 65-point night. So it's all relative to what else is going on. It's a tricky question, and it's definitely the right, question and the right way to look at the slate. Something that's the wrong way to look at things and is worth talking about since you mentioned it. That full fade idea, just, he's been so good. It's going to happen. He's going to have a clunker. Yeah, he's going to have a clunker. That's how baseball works. You do not want to be sitting there trying to guess when that happens. There is no such thing as he's been good, he's due to be bad. He's a roulette wheel. When you walk up to the roulette wheel, if you see 12 reds in a row, you do not have any higher of a chance of hitting black on the next spin than you do on every other spin. That's not how odds work. That's not how math works. So it's very similar. Just because he's had 5-6 good starts in a row doesn't mean he's due for a clunker. The numbers say he's going to be fine. One of these times, these teams are going to get to him. One of those spins, it's going to come up green 00, and neither black nor red is going to hit. Things happen, but we can't just pick out of the air and reach into the tornado and try and pick his one bad game. It's Bieber. He's a high pedigree pitcher getting a great projection in a good matchup. We got to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll use a basketball analogy. When I was building my lineups on Sunday of whether I wanted to put Luka Doncic in my lineups or not because he was so highly priced, I sat there. I mean, look, I didn't full fade him. But I sat there and, and this is where if you've got Fantasy Cruncher where you can use that exposure to kind of, get the crunch the way you want to kind of come out. And to me, that's always look, if he goes out there and he puts up 70 points, you got to have him in your lineup.
Right.
Right.
And in basketball especially, when we're talking about maximizing that point per dollar spend and the different things that we have to be sure we're doing in basketball, where's your natural pivot from Luka on a short slate and all of that at that price point and, that potential of what he's going to do, his upside and his projection and everything, the amount that he's going to hit that target score. So, yeah, it's a great point. And, that's where the game comes into play. And that's why these guys are supposed to be difficult to afford and difficult to fit into, combinations. That's what the game is supposed to be, not just throw darts at the wall and play wherever you want. So can you tell I'm frustrated this year?
Speaking of a pitcher who's coming off a absolute awesome performance is Lucas coming off that no-hitter for the White Sox, the 19th no-hitter in White Sox history. If you did not have him in your lineup that night, most likely you were not. It was not a great night for you because you had to have him. Rich Hill on the other side. And I mentioned earlier on the show. To me, this is just in terms of two of the better teams in baseball right now is the White Sox and the Twins. They had a walk-off, today to win a home run there, and then the 10th with the rookie going deep for them. What's your take? As you, I always feel like a guy coming off the no-hitter, I'm always like, man, how do they come back and still pitch a great game? Right.
And you just got to think that, like, it's just so in your head, that first pitch, when you're, all right, I allowed no hits last time. I'm going to come out here. I'm going to do it again. Watch, crack, the ball goes up over his head. But look, Giolito's been pitching great since the start of last year. He's really, really found it. He was a kid who came into the league with immense upside and immense expectations. And, he found it. He was scuffling along a little bit and really put it all together. And the big difference is before last season, he found an extra 300 RPMs of spin on that fastball. And it just completely changed the way that everything else works. The way that works, that much spin creates a rising effect on the fastball, and it makes all his other stuff that falls off the table, the curveball, his changeup, just really, or his slider rather, and his changeup, just really, really more effective, generates more whiff. So he's just been dominant. 52% whiff on 88 sliders that he's thrown this year, 55 of them to right-handed hitters, 32% whiff on that four-seamer, which is a very high number for a fastball, 37% on the change. Exit velocity is in the 85th percentile allowed, 76th percentile of hard hit, 82nd percentile ex-WOBA, 91st percentile in whiff rate, 92nd in strikeout rate. Dominant. Tough spot against the Twins, like you were saying. I can't wait to watch this game and this series. I think this is going to be a dynamite series. I think the White Sox might take this one, or at least get out to an early lead against Rich Hill. I think that's bit of a bad spot in this matchup, I guess. So Hill, not the pitcher that he once was, and we love that White Sox lineup. So I think the baseball game is going to be fun, but I think we can focus in on some White Sox stacks for DFS purposes here. Hill, for his career, 25.4% strikeout, 9.5% walk. Home run per 9 has been up the last 3 years, 119, then 136, and then 153 last year, and 184 to right-handed hitters. So I think maybe zero in on some of those Tim Andersons, Eloy Jimenez, Jose Abreu, Luis Robert. We got a lot of righty quality in that lineup. They rolled almost all right-handed bats except for Grandal today. I like them to do it again tomorrow. So I think that's definitely a killer spot for the White Sox. Twins against Giolito, probably going to be low owned. Definitely a good lineup. There's power there. There's potential there. So if Giolito's high owned at 10-6 on FanDuel, I get a good projection on him. I expect him to look good in the starters tool. Maybe you can roll out some Twins bats and be a little sneaky about it, but I wouldn't go nuts with it because he's pretty darn good.
I mean, when you look at the main slate, so he is the third highest salary pitcher on FanDuel. As we do this show, we don't know the odds on the other platforms. Where would you rank him with Bieber and Cole? Would he be 3? Would he be 2?
So I have Giolito 3, just in my projections, and it's entirely created by the matchup. It's also, I think I had to make up some run lines, so we'll have to check what the actual run lines are. But I'm usually reasonably okay at it. I won't tout my own horn and say I'm good at it, but I get them close enough. So I got Giolito coming in 33-ish points, and the other two are upward of 45. Just my projections usually project a little high on pitchers. I just have it geared that way. So I like Giolito, but I think it's the toughest spot of the 3. I'll say that. Ranking the spots, I would probably say Bieber's in the best spot, then Cole, and then Giolito.
Yeah, I mean, Giolito, 26 strikeouts in his last 2 games. That definitely sticks out to you, what he's been able to do, and he's been an absolute stud on FanDuel this year. Now, our final game of the night is in Coors Field. It's the Padres and the Rockies. We do not know who's going to be on the hill for the Padres. They've not officially announced that at this time. And we're expecting that Marquez is going to be the starter for the Rockies.
Yeah, I have Marquez and I have Quantrill for the Pods, but not 100%. Like you said, same as all these other ones. It's just what came down with my update. So if it is Quantrill, kid's thrown 119 major league innings, 4.50 xFIP for his career, 1.32 WHIP on his career. So he puts guys on base. He's only 20.6% strikeout rate. In the minors, it was only like high teens, right around 20%. So that's kind of who he is. Throws his sinker 38% of the time. Not a pitch that plays well at Coors. So he could be in a little trouble here. He's got a good four-seamer, good enough to get by. So he could switch that up and just work with the four-seamer exclusively, not worry about throwing the sinker, and just work with the four-seamer, the slider, and his changeup, and maybe get by. The slider's at 23% whiff for him. The change is at 33%. He's allowing some hard hits, some not the greatest xWOBA, 29th percentile in xWOBA, 22nd in barrels, 27th in hard hit. So kid could be in some trouble. We might want to look at some Rockies stacks there. I feel like this matchup has been going on for like a month straight at this point now too. Just Padres and Rockies in Coors. I know it's only 4 days now, but it's enough of this one already. Marquez on the other side. Good pitcher, good at home, knows how to pitch at Coors Field. So a guy I think we can get to. Typically not a guy who gets rostered a ton. Only 7,000 on FanDuel. Probably not going to be prohibitively expensive on DraftKings. For his career, it's a stat I cite most of the time he's pitching at home. 3.37 xFIP at home. So very, very good xFIP. 5.14 ERA, though. So another one of those guys that's more quality than he shows on the surface. So you might be able to get there. 40% whiff on the curveball, 45 on the slider. Very, very good breaking stuff. 0.71 x ISO on his curveball, 0.128 x ISO on the slider, so not allowing much power on the breaking balls either. Pods lineup, we know, very, very dangerous, hitting everything out of the yard, ton of power there. But Marquez is a guy who might be able to limit it. I wouldn't go nuts with it. It's a pitcher at Coors. Maybe as like a 10%er on DK as an SP2, depending on his price tag. Maybe very, very limited shares on FanDuel just to get a little cute and create some pricing that you don't really need.
You know, and speaking of the Pods, on Sunday they traded for Mitch Morell. He is expected to slide right into that DH role. the pods, they had 13 runs on Sunday. The whole line did unbelievable. So I think it's, Mitch Morell's 3,700, so he's already been priced up in terms of that Coors Field pricing. And look, and I think that, and we talk about this all the time, is when you have a game in Coors, you really got to look at that ownership on the stack tool that we have over at Awesemo.com, just because to see, is it trending high? Is it maybe a low owned stack? Those are tools you got to take advantage of.
Yeah, definitely. And we saw that yesterday. The Rockies were trending a little bit under yesterday. So, it was a team I was looking at on FanDuel, and then on DK earlier in the day, they were both trending a little bit under owned, but then throughout the day they caught up. So it's something where I like to check it early when I just really start focusing in on the day, what's going on, how I'm putting things together. And I kind of just mess around in Cruncher and hand building stuff, just seeing how things kind of snap together for the day. And then I always check back as things get closer to lock. 5 o'clock comes, I start building for real, and I want to see where things have changed. And Alex updates that a couple times through the day, and things can change pretty dramatically with some of that ownership. So we're always looking for that edge, always looking for where there's a gap in chance of being the top stack, chance of ownership, and what the value looks like. So definitely important, and same thing for the top pitchers tool. It works the exact same way.
Of course, if you want access to those tools, go over to Awesemo.com/join and sign up for an Awesemo Plus MLB weekly pass for $15.95. Also got to thank our sponsor, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. They do now have CSV Upload and CSV Edit. Make better choices. Choose Yahoo Daily Fantasy. Of course, coming up on Monday, we'll have the strategy show at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Lawfully and Jake. And then Terry will be a part of MLB Live Before Lock. They'll be on at 6:30 before Terry and Lawfully are on at 6:30. I'll be hosting the NBA Live Before Lock, as we've got 2 games, as myself and Adam. We're going to be breaking down that NBA slate. Terry, as always, be sure to let everyone know where they can follow you at on Twitter if they ever want to reach out to you, man.
I am at DigitalB21, at DigitalB21 on Twitter. Hit me up anytime. I'm always around. Come on in, and if you subscribe at the site into Slack and say hi in there, reach out. I'm always happy to answer questions, talk shop.
Yeah, if you're in Slack, the best way to always if you just mention me in Slack, that's about the best way to make sure that I'm going to see that. But of course, we appreciate everyone who tunes into the MLB Early Bird podcast. Of course, be sure to check out our sponsor, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. And that is going to wrap it up for this edition of the MLB Early Bird podcast right here on Awesemo.com.